Morning. Oh, good morning. I just put honey in my water. Hasn't quite come to a boil yet, so I'm gonna wait a bit. Oh, it was terrible. Hey, good morning. mess that up. My fingers are getting a little sweaty. It's been hot in front of the oven. That means it's about time to bake, I think. Just gonna wash my hands, get my boards wet. Recite some poetry. This is Pied Piper of Hamelin by Robert Browning. Hamelin town's in Brunswick by famous Hanover city. The river Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you've never spied. But when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats and bit the babies in the cradles and ate the cheeses from the vats and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles, split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nests in the men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning out their speaking with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayor is a naughty, and as for our corporation, shocking to think we buy gowns lined with ermine, for dolts who can't or won't determine what's best to rid us of our vermin. You hope because you're old and obese to find in the furry civic robes ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking, to find the remedy we are lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this, the mayor and corporation quaked with mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council. At length the mayor broke silence. "For a guilder eyed my ermine gown sell. I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I scratch it so, but all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap." Just he said this, what should hap? At the chamber door but a gentle tap. "Bless us," cried the mayor, "what's that?" With the corporation as he sat, looking little through wonders fat. Nor brighter were his eyes, nor moister than a too long opened oyster, save when at noon his paunch grew mutinous, for a plate of turtle green and glutinous. Only a scraping of shoes on a mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. Come in, cried the mayor, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His long queer coat from heel to head was half yellow and half red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes, each like a pin, and light loose hair and swarthy skin, nor tuft of hair on cheek, nor beard on chin, but lips were smile without an in. There was no guessing his kith or kin, and nobody could enough admire this tall man in his quaint attire. Quoth one, it's as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone. He advanced towards the council table, and please, your honor, said he, I am able, by means of secret charm to draw, all the creatures living beneath the sun, the crawl or swim or fly or run, after me so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, mole and toad and newt and viper. People call me the Pied Piper. And here they notice round his neck a scarf of red and yellow striped to match, his coat of red of self-same match, and on his coat of self into the streets Piper steps. He advanced towards the council table, and please, your honor, said he, I am able, by means of secret charm to draw, all the creatures living beneath the sun, the crawl or swim or fly or run, after me so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper. And here they notice round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripes, to match with his coat of self-same check, and that scarf's end hung a pipe. His fingers, they noticed, were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing, upon this pipe, as low it dangled, over his vested soul fangled. Yes, said he, Pied Piper as I am, in Tartary I fed the cam, last June from his huge swarms of gnats. I eased in Asia than Izam, of a monster's brood of vampire bats. And as for what your brain bewilders, if I rid your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders? 50,000 was the exclamation of an astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe a while. Like a musical adept to blow his pipe, his lips he wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, he heard as if an army muttered, and a muttering grew to a grumbling, and a grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses came the rats tumbling, great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, gray rats, tawny rats, grave old potters, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, followed the Pied Piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished, save one who stout as Julius Caesar, swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to Ratland home his commentary, which was, at first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard a sound as of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe into the cider presses gripe, and moving away a pickle tub boards, leaving a jar of cons of cupboards, drawing the corks of train oil flask, and breaking lips of butter casks. It seemed as if a voice, sweeter far than by harp or by psalteries breathed, called out, O rats, rejoice, the world is grown to a vaster isaltery. So munch on, crunch on, take your nunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, lunch on, and just a bulky sugar punch on, already staved like a great sun shone, gracious scarce an inch before me, just as methought it said come for me, I found the Weser rolling over me. You should have heard the Hamlin people ring the bells, they rock the steeple. Go, cried the mayor, get long poles, poke out the nets and block up the holes, consult with carpenters and builders, leave in our town not even a trace of the rats. When suddenly up the face of the piper perked the marketplace, the first, if you please, my 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders. The mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too, for council dinners made wear havoc, with claret, moselle, vin de grave hawk, and half the money would replenish their cell as big as butter Greenwich. You paid this sum to a wondering fellow, with gypsy coat of red and yellow. Besides, quoth Mayor with a knowing wink, our business is done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, and what's dead can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we're not folks to shrink from our duty of giving you something to drink. and a matter of money to put in your coat. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of them, as you well know, like we did. Besides, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders, come take 50. The piper's face fell and he cried, no trifling, I can't wait beside. I promise a visit by dinner time, Baghdad, and accept the prime the head cook's pottage. All he's rich in, for having left in the caliph's kitchen, of a nest of scorpions, no survivor. With him I prove no bargain driver. With you don't think I'll bait a stiver. And the folks who put me in a passion, may find me pipe after another fashion. How, cried the mayor, do you think I brook, being worse treated than a cook, insulted by a rival, with idle pipe and vesture piebald? Threaten us, fellow, do your worst, blow your pipe there till you burst. Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe a smooth straight cane, and ere he blew 3 notes, such sweet soft notes as if musicians cunning never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling and seemed like a bustling of merry crowds adjusting and pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, little tongues chattering. Like foals in a farmyard when barley is scattering, out came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls, and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, tripping and skipping around merrily after the wonderful music with shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood, as if they're changed in blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry, to the children merrily skipping by. Could only follow with an eye that joyous crowd at the piper's back, and how the mayor was on the rack, and the wretched council's bosom beat, as the piper turned from the high street, where the westward rolled its waters, bright and waved their sons and daughters. However he turned from south to west, to the top of our hill his steps addressed, and after him the children pressed. Great was the joy in every breast. He never crossed the mighty top. He's forced to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed. The piper advanced, and the children followed. When all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was lame, and could not dance a whole the way. And in after years, if you'd blame his sadness, he was used to say, it's dull in our town since my playmates left. I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which that piper also promised me. For he led us, he said, to a joyous land, joining the town in jest at hand, where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers put forth a fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrow was bright a peacock here, and their dogs ran a fellow deer, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagle's wings. And just as I became assured, my lame foot would be speedily cured, the music stopped, and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left behind against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more. Alas, alas for Hamlin, there came to many a burgher's pate, a text which says at heaven's gate, hopes of the rich at as easy rate, as the needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, and south, to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever was men's lot to find him. Silver and gold to his heart's content, if only he'd return the way he went, and bring the children behind him. But when they saw 'twas lost endeavor, the piper and dancers were gone forever. They made a decree that lawyers never should take their records dated duly, if after the day of the month and year, these words do not as well appear. And so long after what happened here, on the 22nd of July, 1376, and the better in memory to fix, the place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper Street, where anyone may play pipe or caber, was sure for his future lose his labor, nor suffer the hospital or tavern, shocked with mirth the streets so solemn. And opposite the place of the cavern, they wrote the story on columns, and on great church window painted, the same to make the world acquainted, how their children were stolen away, and there it stands this very day. And I must not admit to say, in Transylvania there's a tribe of alien people who ascribe the way and dress of which their neighbors lay such stress, to their fathers and mothers having risen out of some subterranean prison, into which they were banned a long time ago in a mighty band, out of Hamlin towns in Brunswick land, but how or why they don't understand. So, Lily, Let me and you be wipers of scores out with all men, especially pipers. And if they should pipe us free from rats and from mice, if we promise them aught, let us keep our promise. There once was a young man named Roland Pye who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder to rest a while from all his baking when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead man with stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed. From that day on, Roland Pye was the happiest baker alive. He would bake until he was tired, then he would pull his recorder out of his pocket while his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pye lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland. In the beginning, he said that Roland was a good worker, but lazy. Next, he said that Roland baked a whole lot, but badly. Then he accused Roland of being a sorcerer, and the people turned on him. Therefore, Roland Pye took his recorder and left his home behind. When Roland Pye came to a neighboring town, he went to all the business owners, but none of them would give him any work. Finally, he met an old busker and asked him for work to keep body and mind together. "Come along with me," said the old man, "and we will share alms." So Roland Pye and the old man started going around and singing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to preen. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, stand where your feet are." Everybody gave alms to the old man, but to Roland they said, "What is a young man like you out begging? Why don't you work for a living?" "Nobody will hire me," replied Roland Pye. "That's what you say. There's a king with so many hungry soldiers, and he'll pay good wages to anyone willing to feed them." So Roland Pide went to the king's kitchen and took the old man whose alms he'd been sharing. The oven had never been used by anyone. Roland Pide mixed the dough, then he rolled it into rings. Then he boiled them, dressed them with seeds, then he baked them until they were golden brown. Then he tossed them in a crate to cool down. Whenever Roland wearied of baking, he would play his recorder. And once he was weary of playing his recorder, he would sing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to preen. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, be who you are." Hearing the singing, a princess looked out the window. She saw Roland Pide and fell in love with him. But she was a princess and he a baker. The king would never consent to their marriage. So they decided to run away together. They fled at night in a boat. When they were already on the high seas, Roland Pide remembered the busker. He said to his beloved, "We must fetch the old man, since he shared his alms with me. We can't go off and leave him like that." At that very moment, the old man came up behind the boat, walking on the water as though it had been dry land. Reaching the boat, he said, "We agreed to share everything we had. We agreed to divide everything we had, and I shared everything I own. Now you have the king's daughter and must give half of her to me." At this, he gave Roland Pide a knife to cut his bride in two. Roland Pide took the knife with a trembling hand. "You are right," he said. "You are perfectly right." He was on the point of cutting his bride in two when suddenly the old man stopped him. "Stop! I knew you were a just man. I'm the dead man, mind you, whom you covered with stones. Go now, and may the two of you always be happy." The old man walked away on the waves. The boat came to an island rich in all good things, with a princely palace awaiting the newlyweds. Morning. My first thought was he lied in every word, a hoary cripple with malicious eye, askance to watch the working of his lie on mine, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that cursed and scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be set for with his staff? What save the waylay with his lies and snare all travelers who might find him posted there? And asked the road, I guess what skull-like laugh would break, what crutch can write my epitaph for pastime in the dusty thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside into ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly I did turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end descried, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out to years, my hope dwindled into a ghost unfit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes the farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, freely you're outside. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, askance to watch the working of his lie and mine, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that cursed and scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be set for with his staff? What save for wailing with his lies and snare all travelers who might find him posted there? And asked the road, I guessed what skull-like laugh would break, what crutch can write my epitaph for pastime in the dusty thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside into ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly I did turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end descried, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes the farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, draw breath freely outside, since all is over, he saith. What did you say? I didn't see that. Oh, you know that's not appropriate. You're some kind of weirdo, hey? Not in my world, boy. No, that's the problem, is that you're the only one watching. Who knows what kind of perv you are? No, I just want an audience other than you. I'm glad you're sad. Is there anything I can do to make you sadder? Just let me know. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary crook with malicious eye, askins to watch the working of his lie on mine, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that pursed and scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be sent for with his staff? What saved the waylay with his lies and snare? All travellers who might find him posted there, and asked the road, I guessed what skull-like laugh would break, what crutch can write my epitaph or pastime in the dusty thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside into ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly to turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end descried, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring, my heart may find new failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go. Draw breath freely outside, since all is over, he saith, and the blow fallen no grieving can amend. While some discuss if near other graves be room enough for this, and when a day suits best for carrying the corpse away, with care about banners, scarfs, and staves. And still the man hears all and only craves, and may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I had for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so oft been writ, so many times among the band to wit. The knights who to dark tower search addressed their steps, did just to fail as they seemed best, and all doubt was now should I be fit. So quiet as despair I turned from him, the hateful cripple, out of his highway into the path he pointed. All the day had been a dreary one at best, and dim was settling into its close. It shot one grim red leer to see the plain catches its prey. For mark, no sooner was I fairly found, pledged to the plain after a pace or two, than pausing for backward last view, over the safe road 'twas gone, great plain all round, nothing but plain to the horizon's bound. I must go on, naught else remained to do. So on I went. I think I never saw such starved ignoble nature. Nothing throve, for flowers as well expect a cedar grove, but chortle and spurge according to their law, but propagate their kind with none to awe. You think a bird would be a treasure trove. No pen may inert the single mace, in some strange sort word the land's portion. See or close your eyes, said nature peevishly. If nothing skills, I can't help my case. 'Tis like Christmas fire must cure this place. Calcite his clods and set my prisoners free. If there pushed any ragged thistle stalk above its mates, its head was chopped. The bents were jealous else. Sorry, I didn't see that one. The bents were jealous else. Made the holes and rents in the dock's harsh sore sleeves, bruised to balk all hope of greenness. 'Tis a brute must walk, passing their life over the brute's intents. No, I'm just reciting poetry. I'm a big fan of Victorian poets. Robert Browning and Charles Algernon Swinburne, I think his name is. I like those. I just like Victorian poets. When I was in university, I took a course in Victorian poetry, and I've thought about their poetry ever since. So, no, not in the mornings. And who cares if they're getting annoyed? I don't care. I don't know, modern sensibilities. I don't know, I was born in the wrong... Oh my god. You're such an arrogant prick. Fuck you. I bet you're unemployed. I bet you're some dick out there. Oh, why don't you work? Why aren't you work? You probably don't even work at all. I hate people who shit on people who work. At least I have a job, right? This is as legitimate work as anything else out there. People just like to crap on people who work labor jobs. I don't understand that mentality. It's like people who work in labor jobs built our society and our civilization. People our working class are probably the most important generation group of people that has ever existed. Working class people are important. I just don't understand the mentality that people think that they can abuse working class citizens just because they frown on their employment for some reason. Because I love baking. Because I love what I do. Yeah, I can tell you only bake your brain. It's pretty obvious. I don't avoid hard work. I guess that's the difference between me and a lot of people. And this job affords me a lot of time to do things I love to do, so. Oh yeah. You gotta be easy on my trigger, man. I have a loose trigger. I will go off in your face, man. Just like Dick Cheney's gun. That's how I'm cocked. Like Dick Cheney's gun. I agree. I agree. They're one of the best inventions in the world. What's even better than the bagel is the technology required to make the bagel. I love the technique that's used for baking bagels is awesome. Like these ones, anyways. Like there's lots of baking technology involved in this job, like the boards and the pot, the oven. Everything's pretty specialized for this kind of baking. So. out there has read Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, I think that is one of the most powerful essays ever written. It's about how women need to have a room of one's own in order to create and achieve the things that men have been able to achieve. They must have economic, political, and social freedom. In order to be full citizens. No, I've never cooked pizza in this. It would be great for pizza, though. I enjoy pasta too. Pasta's delicious. I agree. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which connect them to another, and assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect of the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is their right to alter or abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. And experience accordingly hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer when evils are sufferable than right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have become accustomed. But when long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, envisages the design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the long, patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The present history of the King of Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in the direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused assent to laws the most wholesome, necessary for the public good. I want to speak to your manager. Yeah, I still work here. I love what I do, and I'm making pretty good money, so that's all I care about. I have a lot of free time. I have great hours. In my opinion, I never get weekends off, but whatever, I don't care. Yeah, 4 years ago, wow. Yeah, we've grown quite a bit since then, though. Hello, welcome to Vancouver, or welcome from Vancouver, I should say, I guess. Yeah, this is a new location, so we have 6 stores. 4 years ago, we would have had maybe 3, I think. Thanks. I'm going to try to finish Child Rolling to a Dark Tower Came. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, asking to watch the working of his lie on mine, and mouth scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that burst and scored its edge on what more victim gained thereby. What else should he be set for with his staff? What saved Whaley with his lies and snare? All travelers might find him posted there. And that's the road, I guess what skull-like laugh would break, would crutch and write my epitaph or pastime in the dust of thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside into ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescently as turn is appointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end astride, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. Hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes the farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, draw breath freely outside, since all is over, he saith, and blow fallen no grieving can amend. While some discuss if there other graves be room enough for this, and when a day suits best for clearing the corpse away, with care about banners, scarfs, and staves, and still the man hears all and all he craves, he may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I had for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so oft being read, so many times among the band who wit, the knights who to dark towers search and rest their steps, that just to fail as they seem best, and all doubt was now should I be fit. So quiet as despair I turned from him, that hateful cripple, out of his highway into the path he pointed. All the day had been a dreary one at best, and dim was settling into its close, yet shot one grim red leer to see the plain catch its astray. For mark, no sooner was I fairly found, pledged the plain after a pace or two, then pausing to throw backward the last view, over the safe road 'twas gone, grey plain all round, nothing but plain from horizon bound. I must go on, naught else remained to do. So on I went. I think I never saw such starved with noble nature. Nothing throve, for flowers as well expect a cedar grove. But charnel and spurge, according to their law, might propagate their kind with unduaw. You think a bird being a treasure trove. No tender inertness ingramate, in some strange or were their land's portion. See or close your eyes, said nature peevishly. That nothing skills, I can't help my face. 'Tis last judgment's fire must cure this place. Calcine its claws and set my prisoners free. If there pushed any ragged thistle stalks above its mates, its head was chalk. The bents were jealous elves. What made the holes and rents in the dog's harsh short sleeve? Bruised to, as to walk, all hope of greenness. 'Tis a brute must walk, clashing the life with the brute's intents. As of the grass it grew as scarce as hair and leprosy. Thin dry blades pricked the mud which underneath looked kneaded up with blood. One stiff blind horse, his every bone was there. He stood stupefied however he came there, thrust from past service in the devil's stud. Alive, he might be dead for aught I know, with red gaunt and californic strain, and shut eyes beneath the rusty mane. Seldom went such grotesqueness with such woe. I never saw a brute I hated so. He must have been wicked and deserved such pain. I shut my eyes and turned them on my heart. As a man calls for wine before he fights, I asked one draught of earlier, happier sights. Ere fitly I could hope to play the part. Think first, fight afterwards, a soldier's art. One taste of old times, that's all for rights. Not it. I fancied Cuthbert's reddening face beneath its garniture of curly gold. Dear fellow, till I almost felt him fold an arm and mine to fix me to that place. That way he used, alas, one night's disgrace. How at my heart's new fire and left it cold. Giles then, the soul of honor, there he stands, frank as 10 years ago when knighted first. An honest man should dare, he said he durst. Good, but the scene shifts. Fall with hangman's hand pinned to his breast a parchment. His own band reads it. Poor traitor spit on and cursed. Better this present than a past like that. Back therefore to my darkening path. No sound, no sight as far as the eye can strain. Will the night send a howlet or a bat, I asked, when something on the dismal flat came to arrest my thoughts and change their train. A sudden little river crossed my path, as unexpected as a serpent came. No tides congenial to the glooms. This as it frothed by might have been a bath for the fiends glad was I to reach the other bank. Now for a better country, vain presage. Who are the strugglers? What war did they wage? Whose savage trample could thus pad the dank soil to a plash? Toads in a poison tank, or wild cats in a red-hot cage. And more than that, a furlong on, why there, what bad use was that engine for? That wheel, or brake not wheel, the harrow fit to reel, their bodies out like silko, with all the air of Tophet's tool, on earth left unaware, are brought to sharpen its rusty teeth of steel. Then came a palsied oak, a cleft in him, a distorted mouth that splits its rim, gaping at death and dies on the lilac coils, as far as ever from the end, not in the distance, but the evening not, to point my footsteps further at the thought. Great black bird, Apollyon's bosom's friend, sailed past, nor beat his wide wings dragon bend, that brushed my cap, perchance the guide I sought. For looking up where I somehow grew, the plain had given place all round to mountains with such names of grace, mere heights and heaths thou stolen in view. How thus they surprised me, solved at you, how to get from there was no clear case. Yet half I seemed to recognize some trick of mischief had happened to me, God knows when, in a bad dream perhaps. Here ended then progress this way, when in the very nick of giving up one more time came a click, as when the trap shuts you're in the den. Burningly it came upon me all at once. This was the place. Those two hills crouched like two bulls on sword and horn in fight, while to the left a tall scalp mountain, Duns, Dorner, a dozing at the very nuts after a lifetime of training for the sight. Not see what in the midst lay but the tower itself, the round squat turret built of brown stone without a counterpart in the whole world. The tempest mocking out points to the shipman thus the unseen shelf he strikes on only when timbers start. Not see when noise was everywhere, not see because of night perhaps, why day came back for that. Behind it left the dying sunset, kindled through a cleft, the hills like two giants in the hunting lay, chin upon hand to see the game at bay, now stab and end the creature to the heft.